afternoon, all of you. I'm Jyotsna, your moderator for today's session. Today we have with us Ms. Sneha Sahasrabuddhe. With an overall experience of 12 years in bioinformatics and clinical informatics, Sneha has been heading COVID Bioanalytics as its founder and CEO since its inception. She is a Pune University alumni and has worked corporate for many years. Sneha specializes in bioanalytics and manages all data science projects for researchers and institutions world over. Apart from being an experienced bioinformaticist, an ardent multitasker, and an excellent administrator, she also handles her role as a mother effortlessly. Sneha was featured as most promising woman entrepreneur in healthcare domain in 2018 by Silicon India magazine. She has received Best Startup Woman Entrepreneurship Award in healthcare sector by Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology and NASSCOM in October 2019. Today, Sneha will be talking about entrepreneurial promises of data science, an upcoming and fast developing field in today's data-driven world. With the ever-advancing data processing capabilities, the huge amount of data is being generated world over. This data holds massive knowledge. Data science also possesses tremendous entrepreneurial and industrial opportunities in life sciences apart from its academic applications. We'll hear about this more from Sneha. And before I hand over the session to you, Sneha, I would like to give a quick reminder to our audience. Your questions will be answered by Sneha at the end of her talk. Please post your questions in the Q&A and tab only at the bottom of your player that you can see there. And please do not put any questions in the chat. The questions which are there in Q&A tab only will be answered by Sneha. Over to you, Sneha.
Thank you, Jyotsna, for a great introduction. And thank you for the organizing team to give me this opportunity to talk on the entrepreneurial promises of data science. I'll just share my screen for the presentation. Is my screen visible?
Yes, Sneha, it is.
Yes. Okay. So, hi everyone. I hope everybody is doing well. I am Sneha Sahasrabuddhe, founder at COVID Bioanalytics, and I'll be giving a talk on entrepreneurial promises of data science pertaining mostly to life sciences domain. It has been actually a 7.5-year journey for us for COVID Bioanalytics. It has been full of learning curves, and great projects to work on throughout our progress path. We started in 2013 with small projects in clinical data analysis, and now we've progressed to projects in next generation sequencing, artificial intelligence, machine learning, data mining, software development, meta-analysis, and even analysis of data in the omics sector, and many more. So I hope this talk will help you in understanding the vast scope that data sciences in our life sciences domain offers, and the opportunities that come with it in the industry as well as para-academic services. So everybody has heard about data science, I guess, and big data. So over the last decade, we have seen that data science has become a big buzzword, a trending word, especially in the life sciences domain. And looking at the size and the complexity of the data that is generated in the life sciences domain, this can mainly be considered as big data. So the question is, now we have the big data with us, the raw data that is generated from multiple experiments. Where does data science fit into it, or the components of data science fit into it, and how we can utilize it to make an opportunity in the industry or start an entrepreneur. So that is the basic idea of the talk. So so the data sciences mainly consists of different components, as you can see. It is data processing, data management, data storage, data curation, data analysis, data interpretation, and data application. So for utilization and application of this data, all these components are required in data science and they need to be considered. And mind you, each of these components are equally important and can provide excellent opportunities for you in the industry or in your entrepreneur aspirations. So the tools and techniques that are used in these avenues are ones that most of you would have covered in your academics. So management is basically database wise, storage is also database. So let's take a few examples related to this. Say you have the raw data with you from any experiment, say RNA-seq experiment, NGS application, or a simple clinical data survey. So you have that raw data. First thing you need to do on that data is quality control, right? So the quality control activities, basically removing the noise from the data, background noise, or checking for aberrations, would fall under data processing part. Okay. Then designing pipelines and managing them would be a part of the data management part. If you are skilled in designing data structures and schemas, that can help in data management or curate data sets in context of their domain. This would fall under the storage and curation part respectively. So the data analysis and interpretation part in data sciences is the most important. So basically it comes into the later parts of the data science workflow, while the application of these avenues in your real life problems is actually the stream that presents the actual entrepreneur promises. So how you apply that in your real life is more important. So let's take an example of a similar application that we've developed at Covid Bioanalytics. It is called as eDhanvantari. We are designing a data management application for doctors in India pertaining to the Indian healthcare, specific for Indian healthcare, that allows them to capture patient data efficiently in Indian languages. And it also integrates the captured data with analytics pipelines. We'll be doing that now, such that the doctors as well as the patients can infer their medical records easily. Now, this application eDhanvantari is the one that has bagged us the Best Startup Woman Entrepreneur Award in the healthcare segment by MeitY NASSCOM for the year 2019. Okay, so in this, what we used was the data management, data storage, data structures, how we can connect it with the analysis part of the data for the doctors, for the data that they have in the system. So this is a real life problem which we have made an application for. From the perspective of life sciences, so data science can be classified into two streams mainly. One is bioinformatics and one is clinical informatics. So everybody has heard about bioinformatics and clinical informatics, right? So in bioinformatics and clinical informatics, both these streams present equal and excellent career opportunities, mind you. But most people have heard about bioinformatics, and it is most sought after. It is a well-known segment of the two. And clinical informatics is a lesser known avenue, but it has a wider and upcoming scope for it. Let's look at bioinformatics and how it is further divided into different components. As you can see, you have data mining, data curation, data annotation, data analytics, secondary research, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. So let's consider each one briefly so that you have an understanding of what you can expect or what type of work you can expect in these components of bioinformatics. Let's start with data mining. So data mining is basically mining published literature and existing data sets to identify the trends and get meaningful inferences from it. While secondary research is a part of data mining, but it mainly includes reviewing and analyzing the data points from different published data sets to study a newer independent parameter. Data curation is basically checking the consistency of the data in the context of a domain. So next is the data annotation. Here we basically correlate features and data elements with inferential information. Let's take an example for data annotation. So everyone must have heard about the variant calling format, the VCF file format, which is the endpoint of a sequencing pipeline. So the raw data is processed, goes through the tools, the pipeline, and we get a VCF file. So it basically lists all the variants, SNPs, indels, say gene names, chromosome numbers, positions, right? And the associated informations, right? So annotating, what does annotating this variant data mean? So if we say that I want to annotate the variant calling format file, which it basically means the giving more information about the variant data. And then we, how would you include this? So annotating this variant data would include identifying clinical significance and pathogenicity of the variant from databases like ClinVar, right? So we get more information about the variant. So these are basically applications that we actually learn in our academics, right? We learn all the databases, we learn how to search them. We should know how to apply them. Now we should know how to apply them in real life. So if you're given a variant data call format, how can you apply different database information for that particular variants? So that is basically data annotation. So you can work in this field extensively. Data analytics basically includes two types: predictive and deductive analysis. So predictive analysis can be, protein prediction pipelines, designing protein prediction pipelines, or, deductive can be genome-wide association studies, right? The next, the buzzwords coming up right now are the AI and ML, so artificial intelligence and machine learning. So machine learning is basically used to design self-learning algorithms for diagnostic purposes and predictive applications, while artificial intelligence has a broader scope and it utilizes tools like machine learning and deep learning for predictive inferences. So these are the upcoming fields, but you should not limit yourself to only AI and ML. There are other avenues also available in bioinformatics and clinical informatics, which you can look at for getting a job profile, or start an entrepreneur, starting an enterprise of yourself for yourself. So next we'll go to clinical informatics. So now clinical informatics includes epidemiology, clinical research, data management, data analytics, data processing, care analytics, and quality of life analysis. So epidemiology, so basically what is epidemiology? So it is basically a study of how a disease converts into an epidemic or a pandemic and it's spread across communities, regions, and nations. So in the latest scenario, in the current scenario, the best example that can be cited, which has been worked upon by team members, which are data scientists, IT professionals, and researchers, is the Sero survey, which was conducted by SPPU, ICER, and Persistent Foundation in collaboration with a few other institutions. This was done to estimate the prevalence of COVID-19 and PMC limits. So these type of studies also can be done in the field of epidemiology, which comes in clinical informatics. Clinical research mainly includes the clinical studies and drug trials. The example that I had cited, the eDhanvantari platform that I had cited earlier, would be a classic use case of clinical data management, right? So how do you manage patient data? How billing can be managed in it? How efficiently can you retrieve the data? So that is data management, data storage, retrieval of data, right? So that is one area you can work in. So right now, cloud is the sought out, solution for all this. So you can get courses in cloud, AWS, and they have tools for it. You can learn those tools and you can work in this area separately also. The upcoming fields in this are the care analytics and quality of life analysis. Data analytics in clinical informatics will include the drug designing part mainly, but we at COVID have not worked in drug designing as of now. So as data scientists, you have the skills and the knowledge to work in all these avenues, right? So if somebody is very good in databases, or somebody is very good in reading research articles, drawing inferences from it, what they can do is they can work in the meta-analysis part. So many research institutions, or mainly research institutions and universities, they want researchers or bioinformaticians, data scientists, who can do a review of a specific topic that they're working on, and say from 20 they want to list down 10 reviews. They want that person to go through those reviews, which is called as meta-analysis. So they want to go through that, draw an inference on a specific topic, and present it to them. So if you're good in all these fields, research articles, reading research articles, drawing inferences, you can work in this field. So this can be applied as a job, you can apply it as a job, or you can even convert it into a service as an enterprise, right? So we are coming to that, the next part. So there are two options. Either you can start an enterprise, or you can pursue a job. So if you want to pursue a job, these few profiles are ones that you can fill in. So there are data scientists, data analysts, domain experts, research associates, even software developers. So I'll give an example of a software developer who is a bioinformatician. So business analysts, content creators, ML experts. So we are working on one project, which is basically developing a gene classifier tool algorithm, which uses machine learning, only machine learning. Okay, and we had an expert. So she was we have an expert who is a bioinformatician, but she's very good in machine learning. So she's written papers in machine learning, and she was the best fit for it. She knew machine learning, then she studied other courses, but she was good in machine learning. So she was an ML expert for us, right? Business analysts, are the upcoming, for me, they're upcoming fields in data science. So business analysts are basically people who communicate between for in industries or in a company, there are clients, and there's a development team, and there's a team which works on a project. So if it is a life science project, and if the client is obviously a life science client, and that most of the developers they don't have a detailed background as we have about biology. So if they want to implement the project, right, the developers need to implement that project, the life sciences project, they need somebody to tell them how to implement that in a correct biological perspective. So there we come into picture as business analysts or domain experts. We bioinformaticians, even biotech people can come into picture, where we can understand the requirements from the client, right, in the biological perspective. For example, if they want to build a pipeline which has 80 tools, so each tool will have its own algorithm. It will process the data, say quality control, then analysis, say for example mapping, right, basic engines pipeline. So mapping will happen, then after that the variant analysis pipeline will run, and the final output will come up. So in this process, a bioinformatician or a biology person, a life sciences domain expert is required, where they communicate between the client and the developer team, so that the final application that is uh, developed is from a sound biological perspective. There are many. So for example, software developers. So I have met or seen many people who are bioinformaticians, who are good in biology as well as coding. So in bioinformatics, in the syllabus we are taught coding as well as languages as well as core biology, right from statistics to protein modeling, right, and all the languages. But some of the people don't want to make a career in biology. They know the biology, but they don't want to make a career in it. What they want to do is coding. So over there we get an advantage because we know the biology behind it, and but we like coding, so they can get a job as a software developer, specifically in a domain expert manner. For life science companies, big life science companies were developing pipelines in house, developing tools in house. You can work as a developer there if you're interested in the coding part, right? Software testers are also important in this area, because they need to know the biology behind it while testing it, the software, right? So if there is a plate shown, for example a cell or a plate shown, there are 10 cells in it. So if you have worked in it, if you know the biology behind it, you can test it properly, right? Consultants. So omics consultant is a phrase which is used specifically for genomics, um, proteomics, transcriptomics, so RNA-seq experiments. So many universities and research groups are working in RNA-seq data. So now the new trend is single cell sequencing. So when you work in this type of field, you know what is RNA-seq, you know what is the basis of RNA sequencing, you know the tools for it, right? So you can work as a consultant to them, asking them, you know, you can use this tool, this is a better tool to work in, or you know, you can help them in setting up a pipeline. So that can be a job profile, as well as, you know, you can set up an enterprise for it, which is the next part that we are going to go. So in the entrepreneurial promises, we can see that, you know, I've classified into two, which are probable enterprises and para academic services. So probable enterprises can be software service providers. You know, you can make a software which helps the scientists or the researchers in uploading the data, you know, analyzing it at the back end, so that they don't have to, you know, work on Linux or you do the coding or do the, you know, tedious part of it, and then they get the report from it. Big data analytics or knowledge based management services, business research services, right? And so a very cutting edge and upcoming field in data science is quality of life experts. So especially in the present context of life in lockdown like situations. So what is quality of life is basically it is generally the well-being of individuals and societies is checked. So outlining negative and positive features of life. It consists of the expectations of an individual or, you know, a society for a good life. So these expectations are guided by the values, goals, and socio-cultural context in which an individual lives, right? So it serves as a reference against which an individual or a society can measure the different domains of a personal life. Healthcare is one of the most prominent domains in this. So a quality of life expert is a data scientist who analyzes the present quality of life of a patient, family, or a community and assesses what lifestyle changes can help the said sample set to upgrade the quantity of life by specific lifestyle changes. So this is a new, you know, avenue that has opened up, the quality of care analytics. Another thing is the para academic services. So now everybody, you know, everybody knows that there has been a crisp difference till now, till the last decade, between academics and industry. But now with these interdisciplinary, you know, nature of science and technology, these differentiating lines have, you know, blurred, and this can be seen by the emergence of, you know, what we call as para academic services. These are basically professional services that can be provided to academic institutions and researchers. So for example, at Coed Bioanalytics, we can cite some of these services as, you know, we have provided data analytics and data curation services to academic institutions and universities throughout the world, like Bar Ilan University in Israel or Spain Cancer Center and other institutions across the US, UK, Australia, and Japan. So what I mean by para-academic services is data annotation, data analysis services, data curation services, data validation. So in this, even the meta-analysis part comes in. You can offer that as a service. Analytics, pipeline management services, and secondary research services. So analytics pipeline management services is the next huge thing which can come in for an enterprise, as an enterprise. So if you want to start an enterprise and give services in this field, for example, you have a pipeline, any pipeline, any pipeline in the life science domain. There are multiple tools for, and an example can be like, you know, the researchers, institutions, universities are working on it, but they want to, you know, concentrate on their work, rather than they know how to run those tools, but they don't want to spend time on those tools, you know, running the tools, setting them up, setting up the configuration, mainly on cloud. So mainly these things are done on cloud, or, you know, individual institutions have their data centers for it. Wherever it is, a service called as analytics pipeline management service, you know, you can start an enterprise, a separate you can be a consultant for companies, or you can start your own enterprise, or you can get expertise in these particular services, and you can apply for a job profile in the industry, where, you know, if the client, if the researchers, you know, or the universities are willing to hire, they're willing to hire data scientists who will help them out in actually configuring the tools, the pipeline that is used in this, managing that, so that they can concentrate on the research, right? Once the experiment is completed, the raw data will be given to you, and you will be completing all the services. So this can be given as a service. So similarly, as software as a service as we can give this service as an enterprise or a consultant, right? So data curation services, can be good for microbiologists, right? In microbiology, data curation services will be very sought out after. Um, so the timeline for COVID Bioanalytics is so far. So from 2013 to 2020, we worked on various projects and fields. So we started with clinical data analysis. We moved on to clinical genomics, ML-based gene classifiers, patient registries, many projects on NGS data analysis. We worked on the single cell sequencing platform as well. So it was mainly testing the output files, testing the correctness of the output files. So it was a testing part, but from a domain perspective. So proteomics, data annotation pipelines, even evidence-based clinical support pipelines, EMR developments, development. Recently, as I have said, we've developed the eDhanvantari software, right? So we have given a telemedicine support in eDhanvantari specifically for COVID-19 pandemic. So this basically we can see as, there's a real life problem, and how we as data scientists can, solve these problems or efficiently use our knowledge or skill set to develop tools or softwares to in trying to solve these problems. That is actual real life problems of an entrepreneur. So recently we started the COVID data cloud services. So we worked in metabolomics, and even we are developing a platform called as Omics Reporter, which has been designed, and it is in the development stage right now. So it is a cloud-based platform, and basically it runs the bioinformatics pipelines for the researchers on the go. So drag and drop tools feature, and everything will be done at the cloud level. The users will directly get the output. So that is the idea behind helping researchers, universities, from our perspective, my perspective as an entrepreneur, developing something, a tool that will help in this. So this is our timeline that we've worked on till now. Now, if you're worried about what courses should be pursued in data science, you can pursue postgrad courses in data science, or do online courses for in the recent pandemic era. But I feel that two things are important, a strong background of your domain and excellent hands-on experience. So hands-on experience is very important. So hands-on experience is really very important. So when you're a student and you have to do all the lab work, you say, oh my god, I don't want to do this experiment. But all these small things, all these skill sets and knowledge really help you when you go out into the industry, pursuing a job, or start an enterprise or be a consultant. You should be very sound in your domain knowledge, okay? And you should have excellent hands-on experience, which helps you in solving issues that are faced at the industry level, okay, while coding, while running tools. So a good idea would be to do internships at industries and research institutes, where you get to work on live data sets and projects. If you can do that, then your learning curve rises exponentially. So I would suggest you need to do more and more internships in industries. If you're really interested in going into the industry, learning the know and hows of the industry, what goes on in the industry, what you can learn from it, or you can also know what skill set you're good at while working in this industry. If you get a project, and then if you work on a particular project, you can even understand, okay, this is the skill set I'm good at, so I think I can pursue a job in it, or start an enterprise, or be a consultant for somebody. So so I think you should go in for internships more and more internships will give you more and more experience, hands-on experience in the industry itself, on live data sets, the issues that are faced, and then you can actually think about pursuing the next phase, either an enterprise or a consultant or a job. If some of you are thinking of starting your business, if you have ideas to start a business, you can talk to entrepreneurs. You can contact incubation centers. There's an incubation center at NCL. So there are many startups or entrepreneurs which have started their work in the contact incubation centers. Companies like Persistent, Cognizant. So they even take interns also, and they help startups for the same. So if you have a good idea and it is really helping in the data science field, and you would want to do something in that, then and start a business, you can contact such companies. You can start contacting incubation centers and get an internship. First you get an internship, get a hands-on experience on live data set, and then you can understand what interests you more. That will be my thought from this. So ending it will be every skill set and every piece of knowledge for me that you gain throughout is important. Okay, so the way you utilize and apply that knowledge and skill set, so may it be in an enterprise or a job or as a consultant, is more important. So every skill set and every piece of knowledge, like I said, so if you're good in doing research work, if you're good in doing content writing, if you're good in writing research articles, you can be a content writer or a content creator. So let me tell you, there's a separate position as a content writer in all these companies, big companies, or even in life science companies, actual companies which manufacture these big sequencing machines, and manufacture these machines. So they are looking out for people who can write good content for them on the social media platforms, or good content writing from the domain perspective, like user manuals, requirement analysis, documentation. So they're looking for this. So if you're interested in this part, you can also give that as a service. You can start your own enterprise, or you can become a consultant, and you can actually use that as a service and leverage that as an enterprise, right? So that is one thing. The other example I gave you was, some people like coding more than biology in bioinformatics. So they can work as developers. They can, use their skill set as developers. Some people like biology more, so they can work as domain analysts or domain experts. But mind you, here, the coding knowledge from your academics will definitely assist you in communicating with the developers, the team, which is actually, developing that particular platform. So that will help you a lot. It does not mean that you should be an expert in coding, but you should know a basics of coding, basic languages of coding, so that it will assist you in the domain area of your expertise. So I think these are the few insights that I had for you. This is a global footprint, and it will progress through the years now. And all the best to all the students. If you have any questions, please, Jyotsna has said in Q&A. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much, Sneha. Like, amazing journey it is that you have had, and the experiences that you have shared. I'm sure our listeners, they'll be of great help to them, and carving a path for all the listeners today. We have so many questions, so I have collated some of them, and I'll be asking you those questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So many students have asked this question, as in after a few, taking up some courses or doing masters in some chemistry or,
Yes.
or some allied field of life sciences. How can we venture into coding and things like that? Because it's a big change, isn't it?
Yes,
So
it is a big change. Yeah.
Yeah, and what kind of courses can you recommend for them, to venture that gap?
So mainly masters in non-biology right? So chemistry, physics.
So biology, non-biology both. So for example, a student who has asked this question is MSc chemistry. One of them is MSc computer science. So yeah, so things like that, you know, different fields.
Okay. Just 1 second.
Yeah.
So, you know, firstly, they'll have to do some courses. So there is excellent, you know, there are opportunities in data science for even these people. But, you know, they'll have to do some courses, say like Udemy courses or Coursera courses right now online, because, you know, the universities are not opening up. But they need to do a course which will link them to the industry. That's what I think. So
do you have any idea?
I think they should, you know, they should do some, instead of, they should do these courses as well as they should do some internships, so that they understand that, you know, what goes into, you know, actually working in the industry. Even if they are a chemistry person, for example, when I was working in another company, they had a LIMS system, right? So that basically what they used to leverage was the medical data, or, you know, pharmacy based or chemistry based students can, just 1 second, my voice.
Yeah, you're clear. Sorry, yeah. No, so yeah, so for these people, I can say that the more internships you do, they'll understand more of what, you know, the industry gives them, and then they can understand, you know, what skill set they like apart from, you know, chemistry, physics. What do they like? Do they like databases? Do they like, you know, protein modeling? Do they like, you know, developing tools, coding? So for all these, they need to take up courses. And if the universities are not right now offering, they can definitely immediately, they can, you know, go to Udemy or Coursera courses. There are amazing courses over there, and you can learn from them. And I will suggest doing internships is the way to go for them. So you mean data science courses that are being offered these days, you know? And apart from that, you've suggested few company names wherein they can, you know, get internship and things like that, which can give
so
them
they
proper...
have an internship program normally, apart from the pandemic issue, you know, they have an internship. They do have an internship program, say Cognizant,
apart from,
or Persistent Systems has it. One thing I can think of specifically for chemistry people, you know, they can apply to pharma companies, the R&D department, right? So over there, they are in need of people who actually understand the chemistry behind it. So they do clinical trials. There are different stages of clinical trials, right? And then the drug designing part comes in. Then the drug comes into trials. So during that journey, they need these experts who know the chemistry behind it, right? So if they do if they do a course in drug designing or clinical informatics, and just understand, you know, the tools that go behind the drug designing part, then they can link their chemistry knowledge using those tools in the industry of R&D. So pharma companies will be a good fit for these people.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Is my understanding.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was a question from one of the attendees. They wanted to know the business model of bioinformatics business. I think you have explained it beautifully throughout your presentation.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
But would you want to give, you know, some inputs on how to, you know, when you're venturing into something, like for example, for you started with Persistent and then another company, and then you entered into your own business. So my personal first question is that, how did you think of it? Like why did you want to do this, first of all? And secondly, what kind of, you know, capital did you have to acquire, you know, and from where actually? So that's something that,
So becoming an entrepreneur was a dream of mine, actually. But you know, 17 years back, I just had a dream. I never knew that I would actually, you know, get to do it. So so I started with Persistent, then I worked in a company, and then I thought, why not, you know, start your own company, get good projects, get, you know, good people, and do something for the community ourselves. So
Right.
yeah, so I knew I had the drive, and it was the right time. So we started in 2013. So I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and that, you know, happened in 2013. So the business model that you said was, we actually started a bootstrap. So the capital was from our own savings, from my own savings.
Oh, wow.
So we did not have any investors or funding, nothing. So it was a bootstrap start. So that's why we started with small projects, workshops, and then we started to acquire projects, more and more projects, you know, word of mouth. So Spain Cancer Center, we worked with Spain Cancer Center. One of the researchers moved to Israel, the Bar Ilan University. So even there, because of the work that we did, she wanted, you know, our services over there in the Bar Ilan University as well. So that's why I said the skill set and the knowledge that you should have it perfectly. So, you know, you should be, you should know your domain very well for this. And the quality of work should always be good. Then you'll always, you know, get an upwards journey to, you know, for the enterprise. Also, you need to create contacts. So in the bootstrap business, you just start off. You have your own capital. So you don't need to, you know, build contacts, talk with research institutions or, you know, universities, something like that, and explore different services. So right now, as I said, we've you know, giving services called as COVID data cloud services, backup services. So in this pandemic, what is happening is all the small businesses, they cannot go to office and work, so they're just sitting at home and cannot work. The data has been backed up somewhere, is offline. So now we are offering them to CAs or any data management companies, where, you know, that data can be backed up, accessed online wherever you are, and your work continues from home. So it will not stop in the pandemic. So this type of you know, exploring different services, different avenues need to be done when you're an entrepreneur. So you need to look out for different opportunities. That is what I can say. Also, for funding, basically you need a fixed business model, right? You need so we were bootstrap, but now if we want to move to funding, then we'll have to have anybody who has to have funding needs a definite fixed business model, which you can say, okay, these are the things that I'll be when I get a funding, I'll be doing these things for you. You know, get a good team, get sales people, you know, get a product running, up and running. So for the ROI, basically for them to know, the investors to know. So there are two types, bootstrap and funding. We went the bootstrap way, but many people also go the funding way, because many people have single products which they want to market, and for that they need funding. So this is also a different type of business model which you can use for the services that I said, for example, right? The pipeline management services that I explained. So those, you know, data scientists can actually give people, the researchers, universities, even big companies, they can give them as a service and convert it into an enterprise. So yeah, so that is an idea which you can convert into a service. Yeah, so this is the business model that, you know, we can look into.
We can build
for bioinformatics.
Great. There is an interesting question. What are the challenges faced by women entrepreneurs in India? Like you being one of them, like what are the challenges that you foresee, and if you have faced any?
So I get this question a lot. So even when I'd gone to, you know, receive the award in Delhi for the meeting NASSCOM, the first question that they asked was, you know, what are the issues you faced as a woman entrepreneur? So the question, you know, the question was relevant, but the answer then and even now is the same. The issues faced by me was not by women entrepreneur. I faced the issues as any other entrepreneur would have faced. You know, getting the certificates, getting the registrations. There are a lot of things that go behind the business. So you have to get a registration, you have to get compliances, you have to apply to different, you know, institutions. You have to communicate with the bank, you know, to complete your circle of transactions, which, you know, if you have clients outside India, there's a different cycle you have to follow. So there are many things that go into it, admin as well as other things. So I don't think I faced any issue as a woman entrepreneur, but I did face an issue as an entrepreneur, definitely. But I came out of these challenges, learning them. You know, it was a learning curve for me as well. So You know,
Sure.
you should be ready to run, you know, you should be ready to face any task, any issue that comes your way. I've been literally running to banks, talking to governments, you know, doing office maintenance stuff apart from the projects that you do. So if you have the drive and if you want to get your enterprise successful, you have to do all this along with the projects. So yeah, so there were challenges, but I guess every entrepreneur faces those challenges. So,
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes, you know, the capital came in, incomes were there, not there. You have to manage stuff. So yeah, there were challenges.
So
But now it's good.
I'm seeing a lot of questions coming from, you know, our listeners who have asked about their varied background and how they can get into coding and things like that. So for all of them, I think that Sneha has answered that question elaborately, I guess, and we'll have to do our homework and, you know, see what kind of skills do we want to acquire depending on which field we want to venture it, isn't it, Sneha? So that's what they'll have to do,
Yes,
isn't it? Some
yes,
basic
yes.
homework from there and also,
Yes,
right?
yes. So, you know, do courses, do internships. And mostly what happens is in these internships, they do teach you. It is not like, you know, you're giving a project, you're an intern and you do whatever you want. No, that is not the way, you know, companies do. At least at COVID Biotics, when we have the internship programs, we get interns, we actually chalk out a, you know, project plan, you know, what you need to know, what you
Right.
don't know, which courses you should do before you start this. So there are planned, you know, project planning is done before that. So and that really helps in your you know, future career path.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In continuation to the discussion that we were having earlier about the women entrepreneurs, so
Yeah.
are there any benefits, specific benefits from the government for a woman entrepreneur? So for a startup to, you know, boost her career and things like that. So are there any?
Yes, there are.
So do you have? Can you explain some of them for our listeners?
Yeah, so basically they are more towards funding part of women entrepreneurs, or easing the flow of, you know, what I said, getting the certificates, getting, you know, getting all the compliances done. So ease of that is more for women entrepreneurs. Or even in the banks, if you're a woman entrepreneur, you get, you know, so we were past that stage actually.
Okay.
When these things came in, we were past that stage. We were not a startup anymore. But they have, you know, they have limits for that. So below 5 years is a startup. You can apply for this particular funding. So,
So there are
you know,
grants,
less
like for example,
taxation.
BIG. So like
Yeah, so there
BIG.
is, yes, so there is less taxation if you're a woman entrepreneur, the main
Okay.
so there is less taxation for you. The slabs are less, or you can apply for funding specifically. But the funding thing is it's between the bank and the government. But I think it is limited to the 5 year part of the startup and what work you do and what type of work that that helps in the community. I think those are the parts. So those funding details I don't have right now, but
Sure.
yeah. So yeah. So also one more thing, you can get easy loans. So women entrepreneurs can get easy
Okay.
loans also. Yeah. So that is, so the Mudra loan that we said to start up, you know. So they are more beneficial to women entrepreneurs. Women entrepreneurs are given more leverage in that. So yeah.
That's really good to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so there is one question like from one of our listeners.
Okay.
How to approach companies? So that's something that a question that even I had, you know, when I started my career. What is the ideal
Right.
way? Since you are an owner of one, you've started one. So
Yes.
what would
Yes.
be an ideal way to approach a company for an internship or anything for that matter? So what do you think is an ideal way for a student to approach a company?
So, approaching a company for a job or a
For
consultant
an intern,
would be,
like you just said that, you know, you can go and, you know, ask for internships and, you know, get one. So what is an
yes,
idea?
yes. So you can call their support. So there's an they have a dedicated, each company has a dedicated email ID or a call center number or support number where you can contact and you can ask them, okay, this is my profile, I would like to work with your company. uh, can I meet you, or can I get an internship with you? So for us, it is, you know, I want to work at covidbiotics.com. For other companies, you know, you can get them in on their websites. If you go to,
Sure.
you know, Cognizant, Wipro, other companies. You can get there, you can put your resume there, you can put your information there, and people contact from their team. They contact you and let you know, if you want to work as an internship, do you want a job, you want to work as a consultant. Similarly, so approaching companies is mainly calling, emailing, going and meeting up, mainly going through the websites of those companies. So if you are looking for job opportunities in specific companies, you should go through their websites daily or regularly, not even, maybe not daily but regularly, because most of them put up internship opportunities. So they have, as I said, there are internship programs, 6 months internship programs, 1 year internship programs, something like that. So you'll get information about that over there. Then you can apply on their website itself, and then they'll contact you in the time that they get. Yeah. So that is one way of contacting companies for the job and consultant perspective. For enterprise perspective, you should be, getting behind the companies more. Instead of calling and emailing, you should insist on meeting. I have this idea, I want to start it with. So even Persistent Systems, as I said, they have funding for startups. So you can meet with the team. They do all the processes, the government processes, the compliances, all the certificates that you need. They do it for you. And if your idea is good, maybe they'll even fund you. So there's a startup funding foundation. I think they've started, the Persistent Systems. So yeah, so
Right.
This is what you can do to actually contact companies. Mainly go through the websites regularly. And
Yeah, that's the key. Right.
Yeah.
So Sneha, in this, the current world, the COVID world that it is right now, all of us are working online and everything else.
Yes.
So where do you see a data analyst or a data scientist placed here? So, because right now we are saying that we want to venture into these things, and then we want to also be able to say that there are enough job opportunities for such people. So how do you see them, placed in this new COVID world? So, for example, are there enough opportunities for them, or can they be placed even better now in this newer setting?
Yes, there are definitely excellent opportunities for them. There's no issue. So the best part of our work is we work online and we work from home. We can work from home and we can work online, right? So we have clients in the US. So the clients actually meeting us, coming for work here is very less. So we do all our work online. Everything is cloud based. So if we hire a data scientist, right, for a project, if we hire a data scientist, for example, say a research institute has come to us, they are conducting an array of experiments in RNA-seq, for example. They want to do differential expression analysis, and we hire a data scientist for it, and they are going to do different experiments, and they need a data scientist to analyze all this data using the tools. All the tools will be cloud based, right, or on some server in their institute which we can access online. So if we hire a data scientist, he can work online with the laptop at home. So that is a job opportunity, right? They don't need to come here. Those are the policies of the company, basically. 6 months you need to work from here, you're an intern and all those things. But looking at the COVID-19 pandemic, all this has been, made a little less strict. So, if we hire a data scientist, he can definitely work from home, work online, everything is cloud-based. So the work doesn't stop. And he also gets a job. He can also work as a consultant. Right.
So Sneha, is your company offering internships and courses or anything?
Yes. So we don't offer courses, but we do offer internship positions. So right now we have 4 or 5 interns working with us on different projects.
Great.
Yeah, some are coming from colleges. Some have finished their colleges, but they want to get an internship and work. Some, as I said, some are really not interested in the biology part. They want to learn the coding part of the tools. They do that. They want to learn about cloud, how to use cloud for different purposes. So we give internships accordingly. Also, for a data scientist, as you said, in the COVID-19, so we have a data scientist actually working in Bangalore with us. So she works from Bangalore, and we give her the work from here. We have task management set up, and she from there, she gives the outputs from there, files from there. So she is a PhD herself, but she wants to work from home in Bangalore.
Okay, that's
So,
great.
yeah, so we can definitely do this because our line of work is mostly yeah, online.
So can you share your company details, the website and email ID where, if people are interested,
Yes.
students are interested, they can get
Yes.
back on this?
Sure. So I'll send you an email, or where should I share it? So our website is covidbioanalytics.com, and you can send a message, email me at sneha@covidbioanalytics.com.
So we can, you can,
yeah. I can put it in chat. Should I put it in chat?
Yes, you can, so that,
Yes.
all our,
okay.
yeah. So
Okay, sure.
And what are the plans now, Sneha? What is the next, what is next in your kitty? So
next, so we have ongoing projects, a lot of ongoing projects, and mostly are based on this pandemic. We have products that have come out, and we are using them to use helpful in the COVID-19 pandemic. We are rolling out services, which I said, the COVID data cloud services, which will help companies in the pandemic. So
right.
And basically I mentioned about Omics Reporter, right? So that is the next goal that we have, developing the Omics Reporter platform. So it has already been designed, it is in the development stage. So the idea behind it is, it's a cloud-based platform. You have the tools in it. If you want to run an experiment, then you can drag and drop those tools to make a pipeline of your own. The processes will run background in the cloud itself. We'll use the cloud system to run it, get the outputs, and then you can analyze the outputs as you want. So that is a concept that we have been working on for the past couple of years. We've designed it now, and it is a development stage. So that is the next stage for us.
Okay, the pipeline.
Yeah.
It's a proprietary thing, the pipeline that you have. Okay,
yes.
Okay.
The concept is proprietary.
Okay.
So the tools will be the ones which are available already. So we have not developed those tools separately.
Right.
We've actually, used those tools to make it into a pipeline. So the user can use separate. So this is my experiment. I need these tools. So they just need to drag and drop those tools, make a pipeline out of it. And then they, the process runs at the background, the output files, input files, reference files, everything runs and you get an output.
Great.
And then you developed a UI for it. So that is very easy for the researchers and, in the institutions where they work, just to upload their files and get the output on the UI. So backend work is done by our code and everything in the cloud. So that is known as Omics Reporter. So we'll be launching that soon. So
great.
The next
it's really great to know. So is there anything else that you want to tell our listeners about what they should be looking out for, apart from obviously data science, which is the buzzword these days, but apart from that.
So I found some people, since it is a buzzword, the AI and ML, they they want to work in that, but they should not limit themselves to the buzzwords that come into the industry. Definitely it is, it is very good, the AI, ML, if they're experts, if they like it, they can, develop their skill sets. But even there are different avenues that they can start with, at least, right? What I'm saying is they can start with different avenues in which they're good at, depending on the skill set, depending on the knowledge. And then they can, divert to different, avenues like ML or AI. That is my understanding. And basically the knowledge that you have should be, crisp. So the knowledge and the skill set is, any knowledge or skill set is always important in any industry. So you cannot, so if some person likes, for example, as I said, does meta-analysis very nicely. So reviewing the articles, getting down to a point, getting statistical analysis data. So that is as important as a person doing protein modeling or a person doing drug design for me. So each is good, each person is good in their own skill set and knowledge, and each is helping the industry or the community in developing something good.
Absolutely.
Right? So so I think you should have your knowledge base very crisp. You should have your concepts clear about what domain you're working in. Any domain you're working in, you should have your concepts clear. That is my idea for them, basically.
Right. So that's a takeaway message from today's talk.
Ready to learn new things, basically. That is the basic thing I want to tell the
Right.
data scientists, upcoming data scientists.
Right, Sneha. So that is a question most of them are asking, what are the resources they can make use of, your email ID, your company details, because I'm sure most of them, have gotten great help from today's talk, but they want to understand more, particular courses that will be of great help to them and things like that.
Yes.
And
okay. So I can, I can send a list of the courses or what they can do. I can email it to you, can share it with them later on.
Definitely, we can do that.
So I hope it has really, helped them to understand how to go from being a student to getting into an industry, so starting an enterprise, or getting a job, pursuing a job. So
absolutely, I'm sure of that. The talk has provided directionality. I'm sure, to all the students, to all the listeners we have had today, and the questions that we are getting. The overwhelming response that we are getting, to the course and everything tells us that. So thank you very much, Sneha.
Thank you, Jyotsna.
And thank you from the entire Manav team.
Thank you so much. It was good to talk. Yeah.
Same here. I have a quick announcement for the listeners. So you must have seen that Gmail, there's a problem with Gmail today. There's some outage, global outage with the Gmail today. So the feedback link that we generally send to you all might get delayed by a day or so. But you will definitely get a feedback link. Please respond to it, and upon your response, you will be sent the certificate also. So there might be a delay of a day or two, since there's this outage going on. So that's all from us today. Thank you very much. And thank you, Sneha. Thank you, all of you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.